So this is my levitating water drops illusion project I decided to do with stuff just laying around my house. I have a 3D printer, but not a lot of power tools or anything, made out of a piece of sewer pipe. The idea is to have a very steady stream of water drops coming down and strobe lights to make them appear that they're levitating. So you can see the strobe lights on the sides and the water drops appearing to hover in midair. Hard to film because camera shutter rates, etc., and the strobe light. If you switch over to ultraviolet light, there is a little bit of a UV dye in the water, and you can see what the water drop really looks like without the strobing effect of the lights. You can also see the UV dye getting everywhere. So the reason this project works is because of two things. The first is a custom-made water drop sensor that I 3D printed, designed, and built. And this is the sensor. There's an infrared transmitter and an infrared receiver that the water drop falls in between with a very narrow light path. And this is what it looks like. There's only a 1 millimeter path, which you can see in front of the LEDs, and that mounts in the water stream. And then a valve. The input from the drop counter takes the timing of the drops, goes to an AT-Tiny 85, and goes to this valve. Now the trick with this valve is being able to move a very small distance, less than 1 millimeter, with a cheap 180-degree servo motor. So the way this valve works is the big black cam, which is attached to the servo motor that can rotate 180 degrees and not very precisely. So how do I translate that motion into less than 1 millimeter of travel on a pinch valve? Well, I did that by making this wheel asymmetric. There's a 3 millimeter difference between the radius on one side than on the other. So it, again, as it rotates, it apparently changes in dimension. That moves this lever, which is a 4-to-1 lever ratio. So when that 3 millimeters moves that lever, it moves only 0.75 millimeters on the short end. A hole where a piece of tubing will go through, a piece of flexible silicon tubing, and this ram in green will then be moved in and out and pinch off that piece of tubing. The red is a return spring, which was not 3D printed, but is made out of metal, just in the drawing, to push the ram back. So when that wheel rotates 180 degrees, it moves that ram a travel of 0.75 millimeters. What that allows me to do is to control that rate of drops to exactly 10 drops per second, plus or minus a few percent. It's actually quite accurate. So here is my AT-Tiny 3D printed controlled levitating water drops.